That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, my dudes, we are going to be talking about some must bench wide receivers. Now, some of these guys on this list I actually like for the entire season, but for week one, whether that's the matchup, whether that's their situation, there's something about it that I think we should be staying away from. And instead, I'm not saying to go out there and sell these guys. I'm not saying to go out there and drop them off your roster. I'm saying just make sure they're not in your starting lineup. And I'll go into the exact reasons why. But before we do, guys, make sure you go down there, leave a comment asking any start-sit questions that you may have. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell next to the subscribe button, because I'm sure a lot of y'all have noticed that every single one of these videos, I don't just upload it, I premiere it live on YouTube, where there's that live chat. And if you come out at the very beginning and you leave that comment in the comment section down below, then I've been answering 100% of those comments, whether it's a start-sit question, a waiver wire question, a team grade, whatever it is. So make sure you're coming out at the beginning. And lastly, please take advantage of this ASAP. So y'all know we partnered with Underdog Fantasy this season, by far and away the best platform where you're going to be able to do so many fun fantasy contests throughout the entire year. We're going to be drafting on there weekly, knowing that they have weekly contests. It's going to be so fun on the live streams, but you need to take advantage of it right now. When you make a $10 deposit with promo code FLOCK, you actually get $25 added to your account. Now, that's only going to be available until the 13th. So you have to go use promo code FLOCK right now. They just launched in Arizona as well. So if you were in Arizona and you haven't been playing up until this point, now is your chance. And also you get our 2021 rankings, our draft guides, hundreds of pages of information, literally an $80, $90 value, and you support the channel. So please make sure you take advantage of that. Link in the description, promo code FLOCK. And that should be it. Let's go through and let's talk about these wide receivers. And let's start it off with someone that was quite possibly the best college wide receiver of all time, and DeVonta Smith. And here with DeVonta Smith, I mean, this is someone that broke records at Alabama last year. Not only Alabama records, SEC records, and he smashed them. It wasn't even remotely close. I am sure that everybody has heard us talk about Smith in almost probably 100 videos now, based on us just making a video every single day during the offseason, covering them in depth in Dynasty Fantasy Football. And of course, this is a player that you have to be excited about for 2021. I mean, he is going to be coming into a situation where he's going to be the alpha wide receiver, but there are a few things here that we have to at least question. It looks like, I mean, we have to admit that we were wrong. Zach Ertz is going to be staying in Philadelphia. And with Zach Ertz staying in Philadelphia, obviously this really hurts Dallas Goedert. And this is where I was wrong, because I was saying Dallas Goedert was someone that I was actually drafting when he was going higher in drafts, based on me not necessarily thinking that Zach Ertz was going to be in this situation. But he is. He is going to be taking targets. Dallas Goedert's going to be there as well. Jalen Reagor's going into year 2. So with Smith, I actually think that he is, of course, going to rise to the very top of this overall room in Philadelphia to be the #1 target leader on the Philadelphia Eagles. And it's not even a bad matchup against the Atlanta Falcons. But for the 2021 season, I mean, you could throw in Jamar Chase, Elijah Moore, Jalen Waddle, even though I know Fuller's suspended. Probably not wanting to start Jalen Waddle this week either. Because while we like rostering some of these rookies for their upside that they can have at the end of the year, this is a scenario where you need to see it before you believe it, especially in week 1, when we know that you're going to have so many other intriguing players that you could actually go out there and you could maybe just say, start someone like a Devontae Parker. Devontae Parker going to be in the Miami situation. No Will Fuller playing alongside a rookie wide receiver. I mean, you're going to have so many depth receivers, very few injuries, very few bye weeks. I'm sorry, no bye weeks at all. So you're not going to have to go that deep at receiver. So for these rookies, while I love rostering someone like a DeVonta Smith for his elite level upside during the fantasy football playoffs in particular, for week 1, don't get ahead of yourself. Please don't go out there and start them against the Falcons. I know this should be a spot where you could actually have Philadelphia putting up a decent amount of points, but it's just not going to be worth it at the beginning of the season. And before we move on, let me talk about Smith for just a little bit. So if you're wondering what you should be doing for the rest of the year, I think that it's actually an intriguing spot to probably go out there and sell DeVonta Smith. Now, I understand, guys, like we already said, this was quite possibly the best college receiver of all time last year. It was historic with what he did, but there are some red flags with this profile. He is a very slight receiver. I mean, very rarely have we actually seen someone come into the NFL at this weight. And what's surprising is we have never seen someone come into the NFL with his exact frame and find success for fantasy football. It has never happened ever. And I'm not saying that it has never happened, so it never will happen. I'm saying it's never happened, so that has to, at the very minimum, be a red flag. And now another red flag that we're going to have is going back to that Philadelphia Eagles situation where he's playing alongside Jalen Hurts. And here with the Jalen Hurts, I mean, I love Jalen Hurts for fantasy this year. If y'all have read our draft guide, you've already realized why I'm all in on Jalen Hurts for fantasy. And that's because he has that elite ceiling as a rushing quarterback. You're not viewing a Jalen Hurts and saying, okay, well, this is someone that can elevate the Philadelphia Eagles offense. This is someone that can make this team a top 5 team in the NFL based on their passing volume. No, that's not going to be possible here. The passing volume is going to be down with the Jalen Hurts. You love Hurts himself for his rushing capability, but it's going to be pretty much a watered down version of what we have in Baltimore with a Lamar Jackson, where we know Lamar Jackson's that elite level quarterback, but none of his receivers are really going to be viable in fantasy. Not saying that that's going to be the exact same situation, but I'm saying that it's going to at least remind you to that. And now our next receiver, I actually like him for the entire year, and he has a great matchup in week 1, but you still can't start him. Going to be DJ Chark. And here with DJ Chark, the problem is we just have not seen him get implemented into this offense with Trevor Lawrence. We have not seen how Urban Meyer's going to use him just yet. So you're taking a pretty big risk when you go out there and start DJ Chark. Obviously, he had the broken finger, and that caused him to miss the majority of training camp and as well the preseason. And that's why you saw DJ Chark falling down draft boards. That's why you saw him falling down ADP. That's why you saw him falling down our rankings, because you had to drop him down. Now with the DJ Chark, we're looking at this as a situation where Marvin Jones plays pretty much a very similar role on this offense. They're both going to be the more so prototypical wide receivers, running routes a little deeper downfield, where Laviska Shenault's going to be the guy getting routes run a little closer to the line of scrimmage. And Laviska Shenault and Marvin Jones have been there. They've been healthy. I mean, they've been getting accustomed to Trevor Lawrence and the coaching staff, whereas DJ Chark just simply hasn't had that luxury. So we have already actually talked about possibly looking at Laviska Shenault as someone you 100% want to be starting against the Houston Texans, because this is a defense that you should be able to have the Jacksonville Jaguars go out there and put up points against. But the problem is with the DJ Chark, I hate to say it, I think he's going to start slow. I mean, I think that they're really going to have to figure out how they're going to implement him. I think he's going to have to find that chemistry with the Trevor Lawrence. And while I definitely prefer having DJ Chark over Marvin Jones for the entire season, like DJ Chark is 100% someone you want over Marvin Jones. If you look at my rankings, it's not even going to be close. That's mainly because DJ Chark, by the time we get halfway through the year, you're expecting him to either be the wide receiver 1 or the wide receiver 2 in Jacksonville. I'm assuming he's actually going to be the wide receiver 1B to Laviska Shenault's wide receiver 1A, and I think Marvin Jones isn't going to be close. But at least for the beginning part of the season, I'm going to be expecting that Marvin Jones is most likely drawing targets at a higher clip than DJ Chark from Trevor Lawrence, because he has the chemistry there. He's been utilized with the coaching staff. Now, it's great for a DJ Chark standpoint that it's not like a hamstring injury that we don't necessarily know if he's going to be 100%. I mean, if it's an injury to his finger, I'd imagine if he's playing, he's going to be good. We're not going to have to worry too much about drops or anything. However, I just think we have to be worried about him not necessarily getting implemented into the offense as soon as we want to see. And now, going over to our next player, we have a very similar concern here. Curtis Samuel. Okay, so with Curtis Samuel, this has been another player that's missed out on training camp. This has been another player that's missed out on the preseason. And I actually really like Curtis Samuel this year for what we should have at the end of the year. But right now, he actually is a very tough matchup going up against the Los Angeles Chargers. I mean, these are two teams that really have invested a significant amount of resources into their defenses. And I think that both the Chargers and the Washington football team, they're going to come out, they're going to keep this game a little low scoring. And while Curtis Samuel, we have heard positive rumors from the coaching staff. Of course, the coaching staff has that familiarity with Curtis Samuel from Carolina. But with Rivera, he's saying that Curtis Samuel is going to have a significant role. This is just going to be another situation because he didn't have the preseason, because he hasn't worked with Ryan Fitzmagic. I'm maybe going to be expecting that Logan Thomas. I'm going to be expecting that Terry McLaurin. Those are going to be the go-to guys here. While Curtis Samuel, I mean, pretty much throw every receiver that's going to be on this list with an exception of one we'll talk about at the end of the video. But throw them on our buy low wide receiver video for week 2. I can tell you right now, I mean, some running backs that I'm telling you not to start, guys like Javonte Williams, Trey Sermon, DeAndre Swift, some of these wide receivers I'm telling you not to start, DeVonta Smith, Curtis Samuel, and then also DJ Chark. While I don't want to start them this week, I do want to make sure that we're going out there and identifying them as a buy low candidates next week, because with Curtis Samuel, it's going to be a very tough spot. He's not going to have the production, but I do think he's going to be someone productive for us in fantasy later on. I think they want to get him utilized. They want to get that timing down with Ryan Fitzmagic, and he had a more significant injury than what we actually had with the DJ Chark, where I would expect that it takes him a little bit longer to get fully up to speed, because if it's a lower body injury, it's going to be just compounding with some other things. We know that you can suffer a compensation injury. So here with the Curtis Samuel, I'm going to be hesitant. I think every one of these receivers that you're going to see, at least through the first 4 players we're mentioning, you want to see it before you believe it. So if Curtis Samuel comes out and he plays very well against the Chargers, then we'll be willing to go out there and put him in our starting lineup. Now, talking about another player that's dealt with injuries, y'all are seeing a trend here. Let's talk about Kenny Golladay. And with Golladay going up against the Denver Broncos, talk about another guy that you can add on to that buy low list after week 2, because this is someone that suffers that injury, misses pretty much the entire training camp, misses the entire preseason, does not get any chemistry whatsoever with this coaching staff, does not get any chemistry whatsoever with Daniel Jones. And y'all know I've been saying to avoid Kenny Golladay for I don't know how long in fantasy now. If we think back, he was actually a receiver that was going in the 5th round, and there were some people out here telling you to draft him. We identified him as someone that you wanted to be avoiding based on the fact that you're actually looking at a Kenny Golladay as a receiver that's led the NFL, or at least has been top 3 and has averaged up the target multiple seasons now, knowing that he operates exclusively as that deep field threat. When you have a Matthew Stafford throwing you the ball, that's going to be fantastic. Daniel Jones, on the other hand, we can't say that same thing. And I know, guys, everybody's going to be pointing to the one fact that Daniel Jones graded out extremely highly in deep ball throws by PFF last year. But while he's graded out highly on those throws, if you actually look at the amount of throws that he attempted last year that went past 20 yards downfield, it's a very small to what you actually had with other quarterbacks in the NFL. So don't try to come out here, tell me that Daniel Jones is some deep ball specialist. It's just not true. You can maybe grab one little thing you see on Twitter and think that's exactly the case. No, if you do some more research, you'll see that the fit here with the Kenny Golladay and a Daniel Jones, it's not necessarily going to be the best. I'm expecting this game against the Denver Broncos to be one that you don't necessarily have to have the New York Giants trying to play full-on catch-up mode with. Maybe if they're going up against a team like the Dallas Cowboys, that's when you want to be starting Kenny Golladay. Going up against a bad defense with a very good offense, in that matchup, we would expect the Dallas Cowboys to get out very far ahead. And then there you actually have Daniel Jones having to take aggressive shots downfield. We don't necessarily have that same feeling with this matchup against Denver, and he's coming back from that injury. I think we want to see it before we believe it. It's a new team at the same time. So Kenny Golladay, I don't even know if we're going to include him on our buy low list next week, because I know he's going to have a bad week, but he's not someone I was really loving in fantasy drafts beforehand. So even if he underwhelms, I don't know if we can include him. Okay, so now our 5th receiver, we will get to some honorable mentions after this, but our 5th receiver here is going to be in that same exact matchup, in that same exact situation. Let's talk about Cortland Sutton. Okay, so Sutton, we've actually had taking some reps with Teddy Bridgewater. He does have a little more of that familiarity. But what we don't have with Cortland Sutton is an understanding on how the target breakdown is going to look between him, Jerry Jeudy, Noah Fant, KJ Hamler. This is something I've talked about over and over and over again, that with these Denver skill positional players, while Cortland Sutton is a very talented receiver, the problem is the situation is going to be just disgusting. The situation is going to be very gross. Having to compete 4 targets with an extremely talented wide receiver in Jerry Jeudy. And if it was just Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy, we'd be completely fine with this offense. I'd go, okay, well, both wide receivers can be productive. Both wide receivers can be their version of Terry McLaurin, a very productive receiver in a very bad offense. But the problem is when you start adding on these other guys. The problem is when all of a sudden you add on someone like a KJ Hamler. And I know a lot of people don't want to buy into this, but I'm telling you right now, KJ Hamler was the youngest wide receiver in the NFL draft last year. He did not have a bad rookie season. I mean, he had a rookie season that was almost comparable to what you had with Jerry Jeudy. Yet with KJ Hamler, he gets no respect whatsoever. He is going into year 2. I would imagine, based on him now all of a sudden being 22 years old this season, he's going to take a significant step forward. I'm expecting KJ Hamler to be almost an every down player for this offense. And at the same time, Noah Fant's not a blocking tight end. Noah Fant's essentially a third wide receiver on this field. And he has been incredible through his first 2 years in Denver. So there are just too many names to go to. And also, if we're going to be looking at this as a situation where maybe you have the Broncos going up against the Kansas City Chiefs, and you're going to see that game be very high scoring, you're going to see the Broncos maybe have to push the pace of play, they're going to have to try to play catch up in the second half, then all of a sudden we can get excited about that. But there's no reason for us to believe that this Giants-Broncos game should turn into a shootout. There's no reason that we should believe that Cortland Sutton's going to be someone that's playing on an offense where Teddy Bridgewater is going over 35 pass attempts this game. So I just think with the limited volume that we may see given the matchup, combined with the lack of him being the alpha target in his offense, it's going to be very hard to view Cortland Sutton coming back from an injury when we haven't seen him in this long, just stepping into a role where you can start him right away. Throw him on the list. We need to see it before we believe it. You cannot start Cortland Sutton this week. And now let's go over and let's talk about some honorable mentions. And our next guy is going to be a player that we have talked about a lot. We've talked about a lot so far this offseason. It's going to be Nicole Hardman. Okay, so I'm coming out here. I'm admitting that I am of the opinion, like so many smart people are, that Nicole Hardman is the Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver 2. That Nicole Hardman is someone that was recruited as a 5-star prospect as a defensive back to Georgia, switched over to play the wide receiver position late. So we've always known that his developmental track was going to take a little longer. And that's why I wasn't a fan of Nicole Hardman as a rookie. That's why I wasn't a fan of Nicole Hardman last year. But all of a sudden, when Sammy Watkins is going to Baltimore and Nicole Hardman now looks like he's playing in a significant role on the Kansas City Chiefs, even if the majority of those snaps he's seeing are just only on their 3 wide receiver sets, they run a 3 wide receiver set on 75% of the plays there. I mean, everything screams that Nicole Hardman should be that guy that we're looking at. Now, with all that being said, I've had a lot of questions because a lot of us in the flock did draft Nicole Hardman in about round 11, and everybody's saying, oh, do we start Nicole Hardman this week against the Cleveland Browns? And I'm saying, well, against Cleveland, I would imagine if I'm the Cleveland Browns, what you're trying to do against the Kansas City Chiefs is I'd imagine you're probably trying to play keep away. You're probably trying to run the ball as much as you can with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, drive down the possessions in this game to make sure that the Kansas City Chiefs offense just can't run rampant. And at the same time, while we love Nicole Hardman as that late round upside shot, I mean, of course, it's very possible that Nicole Hardman isn't usable in fantasy this year. There's a reason that he was going at the end of drafts. So just because I really like someone that was going at the end of drafts, that doesn't mean that they're a full-on bust proof. That doesn't necessarily mean that we can just start them week 1. Don't love the matchup against the Cleveland Browns. Nicole Hardman, another one of those guys that a lot of it's just a projection. I mean, it's not like he's a Jarvis Landry where we know exactly what to expect. We've had it over the past few years. Nicole Hardman, it's a projection going, you know what? This is what he'll probably be. This is what he could potentially be. And let's just kind of sit it out and wait to where we see Nicole Hardman after week 1. Then we can try to reassess on if he's someone we should consider for our flex spot in weeks 2 or 3. Now, our last honorable mention that we're going to get to will be Mike Williams. And with Mike Williams, it's a very tough matchup, guys. I mean, you're not wanting to start many players whatsoever against Washington. Now, Washington probably has the best pass rush in the league. And the reason why Mike Williams is just going to be a horrendous fit for that is going back to what we were saying with Kenny Golladay. Mike Williams is that wide receiver that's running routes deep downfield. He's going to have an incredibly high average depth of target. And who does an incredibly good pass rush end up hurting? It hurts the downfield wide receiver because Mike Williams isn't going to have his time to make that double move to generate separation or win at the catch point deep downfield. Justin Herbert isn't going to have the time in the pocket to wait and let that route develop. So with the Mike Williams, I think that this could possibly be one of the worst matchups going up against Washington because Herbert's not going to have the time in the pocket. And while, yes, I mean, the Chargers should have a significantly improved offensive line this year, a lot of that's on the back of a rookie in Rashawn Slater that you're not expecting to be that significant upgrade week 1. While, yes, he will be an upgrade. I mean, he's a rookie that's going into week 1. You're not expecting him to be playing at an elite level right away. So I do like Mike Williams in some league formats near the end of the season, or even maybe just say in week 2 or week 3 when we find a better matchup. But especially when we don't have any bye weeks right now, there'd be no reason to really consider starting Mike Williams. Don't want to be doing that at all. Now, thank you, my dudes. I really hope y'all enjoyed this video. Make sure you go down there, especially if you're watching this as a premiere right now. Go to the comment section, leave any comment that you'll have. I'll go through and I'll answer all of them right after this premiere. And if you're watching this as a video like 24 hours later, you should have gone to the premiere. I can't go through and just continuously answer those comments, but you can still ask one and you can still get your question answered by someone else down there in the comment section answering yours. And yeah, I think that should be it. Make sure you drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and use promo code FLOCK on Underdog Fantasy. We're going to be doing so many fun things over there. Deposit $10, get $25 added to your account, get our 2021 draft guide, our 2021 rankings, our 2021 Dynasty Rookie Draft Guide, like an $80, $90 value just for a $10 deposit. And yeah, that's all I got for you guys. Have a great day. Thank you to everybody supporting the show on Patreon. We got some new members in MCGC, Brian, Matthew, Craig, Ian, Woody, Colt, Marcus, Jack, and Nicholas. Thank you, my dudes.